What up and welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are coaching up Will Tennyson in his video, How I Grew Wide Shoulders Fast. Let's get into it.
No one wants to be outed as a fake natty, but a natural lifter being told that they look like one is quite the amazing compliment. Now, there are many ways to chase that look, but it always starts with two big bowling balls on either side of your face, aka hard-earned boulder shoulders. I've gotten my fair share of fake natty accusations. Today, I'm gonna show you exactly how I've earned them. When most people go to the gym to train shoulders, they usually beeline it over to the dumbbell section, grab one of the heaviest weights, and just start doing dumbbell shoulder press, which is totally fine. But when we think about building boulder shoulders, the thing that gives us that 3D look is the side and the rear delt being super well developed. So with that said, I like to start with my rear delts first.
So very true. I see it all the time when people go to the gym. The first thing they think about to get big shoulders is to just press stuff. And for the most part, it's sometimes true, but most of the time forms often end up doing more so of like a anterior delt exercise or upper chest, and the side delts really don't get that much, and then the rear delts lack the absolute most. So starting off this thing very good. He's been around some great coaches.
It really is sad. Rear delts are neglected. People don't like to train them. That's because you don't see them right away. They're on the back side. They're technically the Kevin Jonas of the group, but they're still part of the band and they're an important part. So one of my favorites is the cable face pull. Obviously, there's many ways in which you can do this. I like to hold it with my two fingers like we learned with Phil Heath. We're gonna come out.
Will is the sexual innuendo king, 100%.
It's gonna go like this. So palm facing the cable on the way up. So twist, boom, squeeze, control all the way down. When it comes to reps, I like the DiCaprio method, stopping at around 25.
All right, so let's see how we're going to rep. Okay, good guys. And then let's go.
You don't have to go all the way to lockout. Stop a little bit shy of the lockout. Keep the tension on the delts.
So here's the thing, I like the cues here, but here's how we make things a little better. Number one, when it comes to holding the weight or just setting it up, if you want to work your rear delts, you want to make sure you set up the cable so they're basically at shoulder height. If you put them down low, you're going to work some of the traps, more traps. You put them up high, you're going to work some more of your back, right? Pulling down or pulling up, right? Pulling it straight at you is going to hit more of your rear delts. Now, when it comes to setting up, Phil Heath can do whatever he wants. All right, Phil Heath could do whatever he wants. He can bench press with his pinkies if he feel like. He can bench press with his pinkies if he feels like, but it doesn't mean you do it too. Now, I understand that you watch a guy like Phil Heath and he gives you a tip on how to do this because it makes him feel good, or he's been able to develop his delts the way he has. He's arguably got one of the best physiques of all time when it comes to the Mr. Olympia. But when it comes to you guys, training and Will, you guys can see the video I did last week with my client, and he took this cue and tried doing it himself, but still could not feel his delts. And why? Number one, when you do any kind of movements, a lot of times there's an overemphasis with gripping or pulling with your hands. When it comes to rear delts, back, shoulders, whatever it is, when it comes to it, it's the humerus, this part of the arm that is moving back. It's not the hands pulling back, it's the elbow actually moving back. So a better cue for this is number one, switch your hands to actually holding the handles like this or like this. Reason being is because when it comes to actually loading it, so you want to put a little more resistance on it, you're gonna fail from here. Now, it doesn't mean you have to put a ton of weight on to be able to feel the delts. It just means that if you're doing 20 reps, 20, 25 reps, and you're using your digits like this, guess what's gonna gas out before your rear delts? Your forearms, okay? So we got that figured out. Next, when you're actually doing the movement, think about actually pushing your elbows out on the way back. The rope is coming towards your face by your elbows pushing and going back. Now, where he has the rope at the very end is good because it keeps a lot of tension on the rear delts. But on the way back too, if you want to get a lot more of the delt to be stretched in that stretch or lengthen position, we want the scaps to protract. Let them protract, and while they're protracted, meaning the scaps are open, then you push the elbows to the side and then pull like that. You can do that right now without any weight, and you'll be like, damn, Johnny, I can feel my rear delts without even doing anything. Go like this and push the elbows out to the side while pulling up, and you'll feel your rear delts.
Back up, and then from here to here, there's a lot of magic going on, so don't rush it down. Take your time and control it. Make it your bitch. My second favorite rear delt exercise is the cable rear delt fly. So I'm the type of person, I can't really feel the reverse pec deck. I can't really connect with my rear delt as much. So I find this to be a lot easier for me. So I grab the opposite side. It's almost pretty much exactly like a pec deck. You're just using the cable. Squeeze, and then control it back down.
So a couple things when it comes to this movement itself. I like the way he's setting it up, but I would much rather prefer that he keeps his arms almost a little less flexed or bent, right? Keep them more straight. So when you're at the cable, your arms are more straight and you're again pushing out. And then we have a little bit of a bend in our arm. Just say like if I just punched like this, if I just went like this and then I flexed my arm, that's where I want to have my arm in terms of like pulling it back. Then that lever, when I'm pulling the weight through, is gonna put way more tension on my rear delts. If I'm pulling back like this, I'm using a little more of my traps to start pulling. As you can actually see, when he pulls, you can see right away, you can see his traps are
Squeeze.
Right, so you can see, you can look at his delts. You wanna see what's actually being used here. What I like to coach is when we're doing rear delt movements, the more we can keep the scapulas open throughout that movement, the more tension is gonna be on the rear delts. Because a lot of times we can just do this, and a lot of times when we're moving it back, and the scaps are moving most of the weight to start off. So you wanna make sure we're pushing away and pulling while pushing away, and the rear delts will have the tension on it the entire time. And then we're back here, we can squeeze the scaps, open up just to finish it off, and then again, pushing away and letting the scaps open up on the way back. Nonetheless, he's doing a great job. You can see his rear delts, you can see everything back there is on, but you can see the difference between what's more pronounced when he's in that contraction. You can see the traps are firing off. You can see the rhomboids, the teres, all the muscles there are firing off a lot, and the rear delts aren't as pronounced because again, those muscles are gonna take over more often than not. So do yourself a favor, take your time with these movements, open the scaps, keep them open, reaching far away, and making sure that they don't come on until the last minute.
Tip number 2, lateral raise until you can't no more. Lateral raises for your delts are so important. It is critical. And there's so many ways in which you can do it that I encourage you to constantly be switching it up. Use the dumbbells, use the cables, use intensity techniques. So I'm gonna be showing you 2 of my favorites lately. First one being with the dumbbells, 45-degree lateral raises. So we're gonna start 45 degrees out, and you're gonna go 45 degrees over shoulders and then back down. So I find from here to be junk volume. This is where your delts are resting. So let's just start here, keep the tension on the delts, and really burn it out.
So great movement, great idea there. I do like that, you know, keep the tension on the muscles the entire time. Sometimes when you're stuck with the dumbbells, you have to use little techniques like this to actually maximize the tension when you're there. Again, when we're looking at getting the most amount of muscle hypertrophy or muscle growth, it's gonna happen when you're in that stretched position. But again, if you can't get there, the shortened contraction is important as well too. So it's very important that you do increase that range of motion like Will is doing here. Now, a couple things you can do to make this even harder or to create tension is to do this exact same thing, but do it on an incline or on a face lying incline, and then you'll have some tension at the bottom of the lift right away.
So we just hit failure, we're not done yet. We're gonna go right from there to then going to upright rows. 1, control it down. 2, hold. 3.
So this is good, it's a good superset here. The only issue I have with this again is another one of those common misunderstandings when it comes to doing something like a upright row or a face pull. Because if you look at it right now, he's basically doing a face pull with dumbbells if the cables were at the bottom, coming from the bottom up. Now, when he's pulling this up, you can see that a lot of the emphasis there when he's pulling the weight up is coming from him pulling up here. Now, yes, 100%, that's where you want to pull, but you have to understand that the reason why that your arm is actually coming up is because of this bone right here, from here, right? Take your tension off of your hands. Keep the orientation that he has right there like it should be. It should be there. Where he's pulling is fine, but make sure you pay attention more so to where you're feeling it. You're pulling with your elbow. You're pulling up. If I just do this and just pull with my elbows and think about driving my elbows as far away to the room as I can and as high as I can. Doing this is gonna make your delts really work, right? Or you end up just doing this and pulling this way and you get kind of congested here, and it's a lot more of a trap exercise than it is an actual lateral head or side delt exercise.
We're only one set in, and look at that shoulder pump already. Jeez. I can barely scratch my head. And try to get to your forehead, hold and squeeze, and then come back down. So when you get to the top, you really want to just squeeze your rear delts as hard as humanly possible. And then again, as always.
So again, just like I said before, guys, do the exact same thing Will is doing, but I want you to make sure you emphasize pulling from your elbows. You're getting most of that raise from the elbows coming up. You're trying to pull the elbows as high as you can up. And that's gonna give you the same sensation that he's getting. We just wanna make sure that we're feeling it fully in the lateral head of the delts. Next
exercise, cable lateral raises, kind of like a Y raise, but we're gonna go a little bit wider out. So again, we're gonna grab opposite side, opposite hand. The entire time, you wanna have your arms straight. You don't wanna have them bent at all. We're gonna come up.
So I've done this, guys, a couple times seated, crane exercise. When you're doing it seated, the only difference is you're taking away momentum and it forces a little bit more tension on the delts. So you can see how he does it when he's getting up. When he's getting to that full contraction at the top, he's really arching back. So you're actually shortening that range by doing this, right? So what we want to do is, whether you're seated or standing, we want to keep your torso in that fixed position. So when you're pulling, you keep the tension on. Once I do this, I'm taking the tension off that and I'm changing it to other parts of my body that I don't want, right? I don't want tension on my lower back. I don't want tension there. I'm just sitting here like this for some reason. Either way, what we want to do, guys, is make sure that we keep our torso straight, almost like keep your gaze down at the cable still. So when you're pulling, everything's staying linear and that tension stays on the delts the entire time. Right, we want to limit the amount of hyperextension from the back, meaning you don't want to be leaning back like this, right? What you want to do, guys, is focus the most on making sure your torso is in a good fixed position. It can move, but we don't want the torso doing all this stuff when we're doing lateral movements, when we're doing like accessory work. You want to keep it firm. So when we're pulling, we're here, right? We're not leaning back at the spine. We can open up, we can open the chest up. That's fine to do that, but we don't want to keep hyperextending the back and the spine and doing all this kind of stuff here. We want to just keep it in a fixed position, meaning engage your core, and that'll limit a lot of that movement.
And often. So I'm gonna show you guys a really cool intensity technique that I took from Dr. Mike Israetel that has absolutely changed the game in my shoulder training. And I feel like this tip is my #1 tip in this video, and that's the myo rep match sets. It's pretty much 3 sets. Your first set is gonna be a straight set. We're gonna go to absolute failure, 10 to 20 rep range. Set 2 and set 3, you have to get whatever you get in the first set. And you're basically doing whatever it takes to get there. So let's just say on set 1, I fail at 20 reps. Sets 2 and sets 3, I have to get 20. While I'm in my second set, I might fail at 14. I'm gonna drop the weight.
Rest for a bit and keep going. So my reps are absolutely awesome. We've all done them. Anyone who's training with Doc Mike has been through the ringer, and it's an unbelievable set intensifier. It's a little different than rest pause, because rest pause is like there's not a max amount of sets reps you're going to. Rest pause is basically similar to that, but instead of going to that, first set that you were aiming for, say you're doing, 10 to 15 reps and you do, you get to 10 reps, and then you do say like 2 rest pause sets, and then that rest pause, after you do like 10 reps, you do another, set while you take like a 10 to 15 second break in between, and then you rep out as much as you can again, and then you do the same thing again. That's different than a mile match because you're not trying to match that first max amount of reps you're doing. Set intensifiers, whether it's a drop set, whether it's a mile match, rest pause, all you're doing is lengthening the set. That's it. And what does lengthening the set mean? Well, basically it lengthens the time under tension. That's all it does.
And keep on going until I hit 20 reps. And we're gonna do 3 sets of that. So this is set #1. This is where I'm setting the standard for the following 2 sets. So we're gonna go to failure right here.
Now, a couple things Will is doing that I like. You know, he's doing his best there.
Reps there, sets 2 and 3. We got to get 20.
There's always this like middle ground that we want to have when it comes to grip, right? I see oftentimes we get this real, you know, exaggerated limped wrist when we're pulling. And that's just as bad as doing the excessive pulling from here as well, right? So what we want to do is we want to have a strong fixed wrist position, meaning I always make this example. Think of like punching, right? A good strong punch is gonna look like this, right? If I'm punching through. That's how I want my fist to look. I want everything to stay stacked. If I'm doing this, and I got a good enough amount of weight on my wrist, well, guess what, right? So we wanna make sure that we have a nice fixed wrist like this. Put it this way again. If you're gonna punch somebody, let's just say you're gonna punch a punching bag. If you punch the punching bag with the hand or fist that you're using to do this exercise, would you break your wrist or would you make great contact? In this, you would break your wrist, right? So just think about having strong angles, strong joints when we're going through lifts.
Rear delts are fried, side delts are fried. I train both of those things to failure every single set, every single workout. So now it's time to press, which leads me to tip number 4 is that you don't need to press first every workout. It's kind of like a tequila shot. You can take your lime, you can take your shot and your salt. It doesn't really matter which order you do it, you're gonna feel the burn. Now, the overhead press mainly trains your front delt, a little bit of the side, and hardly any rear. So if we were gonna start with the overhead press as our first exercise, we're pretty much just gonna be hitting our front delt. But now, because we've hit the rear and the side, they will now become the limiting factor, creating much better of a stimulus for all 3 heads of our delts. And another thing, which I know probably a lot of you guys don't wanna hear, you're probably gonna have to go a lot lighter, which is nice on the joints.
Great tip. I think it's great to do that, to get everything kind of out of the way first in terms of the accessory work, because that allows you to really just focus on the actual rep quality. When we see overhead presses, I would say that 90% of the time, if you see somebody doing a barbell overhead press, they got in way too much weight than they need. Unless you're a strong man or Olympic lifter or whatever, the weight that you're lifting overhead should not be so excessive that it makes you contort your entire body or spine. You should be able to have a good upright body. You're gonna have to lean it back a little bit, and it's gonna be more so of almost a standing inclined front delt exercise. But to keep your joints safe and healthy, doing this at this part of the workout is perfect because you can't go any heavier. It's gonna make you and force you to lower the rep. You're gonna have to get that ego away once you've done all that he's done already before he's actually pressed. So this is a great tip.
Great form too.
This is kind of a tip within a tip. I know a lot of people are not gonna like this, but I always recommend at least 1 standing press in your shoulder training routine. If your goal is just strictly getting as big as shoulders as you possibly can, then I think probably the seated is probably better for you. You can probably get more time under tension, more focus on just the delt directly, and less chance of injury. But I find that this is it's just an alpha movement. I enjoy it. It's just athletic as fuck, you know? Lean back slightly, not too much. Create a nice shelf. Push up, through, extend, squeeze, control it down. Don't just drop it down.
So great, absolutely great form what he's doing here. We have to be very careful of promoting you want to get a bigger, better bench. Now, look, go have a bigger, better bench. There's nothing wrong with that at all, right? When it comes down to it, you're gonna grow the most when you find exercise that you like the most. Now, when it comes to overhead pressing, yeah, being in a machine is gonna be a lot better for you overall when it comes to being able to control the time and attention, you being able to, you know, not have any other muscles that are being recruited to help you move, 100%. But again, when it comes down to it, if you like this movement, do the movement.
Tip number 5, shoulders can handle a ton of volume. So I talked about going to failure. How do we get to failure? So that's by using supersets, drop sets, cheat reps, or in this case, something that I love, especially for the side delts, partial reps. So people, you know, when you start doing a rep and you feel like you can't get the whole range of motion, you stop right away. Why? Stay within that burn. Feel that burn. Just stay and start doing partials until you really can't anymore, until you hit literal failure. We're starting to get to the failure point. We're gonna start banging out just like this. This is where shit happens.
So good tip here, guys. Good to do partials, but again, when it comes to doing partials, we want to make sure we're doing those long length partials, right? So this machine doesn't necessarily allow you to get to that really great stretch position, but it's still great to do no matter what. Now, when it comes to long length partials, if anything, I like doing long length partials when it comes to delts with the cables, right? Have the cable set up by about, you know, waist height, coming across and letting the weight actually pull you away this way. You want the delt to be in a stretch position like this, and then doing a long length partial from here, right? I'll do this side so you actually can see. But if I'm here, my arm's right at the side, the long length partial isn't as effective as it would be if I was in a cable like this with my arm across right away and there's already tension on my delt. Do yourself a favor. Instead of doing this machine, I would go to the cable machine and do exactly what I said. Get yourself in a position where you're getting a good stretch on the delts right away from the bottom, from a stretch. And then you'll get a lot more muscle hypertrophy in that lengthened position. Still, again, if you have to deal with this, you deal with this and you do exactly what you gotta do, and you force yourself to make sure you go too close to failure, and you'll get some good work from it.
Like that. Tip number 6, always focus on your tempo and your range of motion.
Love it.
So many times I see people pressing, and let's go here, like that.
100%.
Sure, it looks good, you have more weight, but I'd rather do 10 great reps than 15 mediocre reps. I'd rather lift way less weight and have bigger delts than lift a ton of weight and looks like I don't even train.
So what Will is doing there is he's creating a lot more stretch in that lengthened contraction. So when the weight is down like this, he's getting a lot more stretch by having it out there. Do you need to do that? It's not necessary, but it's a great tool to add, or I would say technique to add if you want to. Now again, going back to his comment about tempo and weight, yeah, 100%. I go to the gym all the time. When I see people in the gym, it's partial reps not because they want to, it's partial reps because they can't handle the load that they're using. So they're strongest here. The lower we get, the harder the rep's gonna get. So people don't go full range because it's harder. As soon as you tell somebody to go full range, they gotta cut like half their weight away. So this is a great, great tip that Will is giving, because there's a lot of people that still need to hear it, because when I go to the gym, I still see people that are still doing these half ranges that don't make any sense. And then using a load that is not gonna let them actually grow. They'll just get stronger in this range and their delts don't get any bigger.
Get that stretch. Remember, the motion of the ocean gets the boulder on the shoulder. So I usually like to end my workouts with a little bit of front delt. You know, the front delt's the first impression delt. You want to lead with a good impression, right?
Now, again, do you have to do front delts? We hit front delts all of the time. I think you still should train them. But again, if you want to make it a little bit more beneficial doing front delts, what I like doing with front delts is bringing it to the middle, right? So you're getting a little bit of that adduction from the chest and flexion. Remember, the shoulders, the chest is going to do shoulder adduction, right? And it's gonna help with shoulder flexion as well too. So when the front delt is flexing up, right, why not bring that chest in as well too? So when you're doing this exercise, bring it up to the middle of your body and then come back down to the side. That way you're creating that adduction from the shoulder, you're working that nice little sweet spot right from here to here, and you get to work a little bit of the chest and the delts. Overall, man, great exercise, great tips. Will Tennyson's been able to just travel the world and train with some of the best coaches. And what's great about that is he's been able to take a lot of those tips, apply them to his life, but still he does what feels good for him too. And that's the biggest takeaway. Guys, when it comes down to it, we want to have good form. We want to have good range of motion. We want to have great tempo and control. But when it comes down to it, the biggest gains are going to come from the exercise that you like to do the most. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. You know I'm gonna come out with that tell like it is, transparent, vulnerable truth. For coaching, JONNI.com. If you want to know more about my coaching, guys, book yourself a 1-hour video consult with myself. We talk about training, nutrition, supplementation, whatever it is, guys. We chop it up, just me and you. At the end of the consult, guys, I'll give you $100 off any package that you pick. And guys, head on over to JONNI.com, guys. You got my 3, 4, 5 day splits, the push-pull legs training ebook, the final diet, custom one-time plans and the iron community. And if you want to get some one-on-one posing coaching as well too, guys, head over there as well too. Anyway, guys, until next time, you know how it is. Iron sharpens iron. Progressive overload your life. In the meantime, keep dream chasing.
Last name ever, first name greatest, 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 greatest.